Stop chasing men, start doing this instead. Because the moment you make these bold moves, he won't just notice you, he won't be able to get you out of his head. This isn't about playing games. This is about becoming the woman he can't stop thinking about, the one he craves at every level, emotionally, mentally, and physically. There's a reason some women walk into a man's life and leave a mark so deep he never recovers. It's not luck, it's boldness, it's psychology. In this video, you'll learn 5 powerful, daring moves that don't just capture a man's attention, they grip his soul. Ready to stop hoping he'll chase you and make him need to? There's a moment in every interaction between a man and a woman when desire reaches its peak, when the air thickens, his heartbeat quickens, and his attention is fully locked onto her. Most women mistake that moment as a signal to lean in, to give more, to feed the hunger that's rising in his chest. But the bold woman does something completely different. She walks away, not because she's cold, not because she's playing games, but because she understands something far deeper about masculine psychology. Desire grows in tension, not in comfort. When you walk away at the height of his want, you're not rejecting him. You're mastering the art of presence and absence. You're teaching him the lesson that your closeness is a privilege, not a guarantee. And that's where obsession begins. When a man feels that his desire is met too quickly, he enjoys the moment, yes, but it fades. It becomes consumed, satisfied, resolved. But when you interrupt the rhythm, when you pull back just as it gets good, when you leave him staring at the doorway, wondering what just happened, you ignite something primal in him. That unresolved intensity becomes a loop in his mind. He replays the way you smiled before stepping back. He replays the last thing you whispered before you walked away. He replays the look in your eyes that said, I could give you more, but I won't, not yet. This is not manipulation, it's mastery. It's understanding the power of pacing, the weight of restraint. And men don't just notice it, they become haunted by it. You see, the masculine craves the chase, not the shallow kind, but the kind that pulls him into a journey of psychological tension and emotional hunger. When you walk away at the peak, you give him space to chase with purpose. You create mystery, and mystery is the birthplace of obsession. It's not about withholding love, it's about creating rhythm. Just like music isn't powerful without silence between the notes, intimacy isn't addictive without a moment of distance. That pause, that exit at the height of emotional temperature, doesn't make him forget you. It makes him need to resolve what you left unfinished. And the truth is, most women are afraid to do this because they fear losing him. They fear that if they don't give everything in the moment, he'll turn to someone else. But what they don't realize is that giving everything too soon is what kills his desire. What a man truly remembers, what he obsesses over, is not the woman who gave him everything, but the one who made him feel something so intense, so consuming, and then left him standing in the aftershock. It's the feeling of almost that lingers, the moment when his heart was racing and his hands were reaching and you simply smiled and said good night. That moment breaks patterns. It rewires his brain to attach you to the feeling of hunger, not satisfaction. And that's where emotional addiction begins. The woman who walks away when things heat up isn't running. She's ruling. She's setting the tempo of the connection. She's declaring, without saying a word, you don't get all of me on your terms. You get access based on depth, not desire. That energy is magnetic. Men respect it. They crave it. Because deep down, men don't want to conquer a woman. They want to earn her. They want to feel that their effort matters, that their pursuit leads to something of value. And when you leave at the peak, you raise the value of your presence. You become the thought that keeps him awake at night, the memory that hits him at unexpected times. You become unresolved. And nothing sticks in the male psyche like unfinished business. But make no mistake, this isn't about arrogance or emotional withholding. This is about being deeply attuned to your own value. It's about recognizing that you are not required to pour yourself out just because a moment feels intense. It's about controlling your energy like currency, giving it in doses that invite appreciation, not consumption. A bold woman doesn't rush to fulfill a man's fantasy. She lets him simmer in it. She knows that her mystery is not a wall, it's a mirror. When he doesn't get to complete the experience, he's left to face his own longing, his own vulnerability, his own desire. And in that space, he starts to crave not just her body, but her presence, her approval, her essence. That's when obsession takes root, not in the quick gratification of desire, but in the long echo of an encounter that felt incomplete. He starts to imagine what could have happened next. He starts to fantasize, not just about her touch, but about her thoughts, her boundaries, her reasons. The question of why did she stop becomes more intoxicating than any moment of physical closeness. And that question spirals into curiosity, then fascination, then addiction. And the woman who creates that spiral doesn't need to chase. She doesn't need to beg. She doesn't need to prove, because she's already taken residence in his mind without lifting a finger. So the next time you feel the heat rising, the tension building, and you see the look in his eyes, the one that says he wants more, don't automatically give it. Look at him. Let the silence thicken. Smile. And then walk away. Not forever, not to punish, but to leave a mark. Leave him in that place where his desire is strongest. Let him sit in it. Let him replay it. Let him become obsessed with what wasn't finished. Because that right there is the boldest move of all, and the one he'll never forget. When a woman speaks her desires without flinching, without softening the edges, without cloaking them in apology or hesitation, something seismic shifts inside a man. Not just because it's rare, but because it pierces directly through the noise of the world he's used to. Men are bombarded every day with hints, tests, and mixed signals. Women hoping he'll read between the lines, guess right, decode emotions never expressed. But when you stand grounded in your body, look him in the eye and tell him exactly what you want. Not in a demand, but in clarity. You break the entire pattern he's been conditioned to expect. You show him something most women are afraid to reveal. Not just your desire, but your authority over it. That kind of boldness is unforgettable, because it's the kind of communication that isn't just about getting your way. It's about owning your inner world without shame. A woman who speaks her desires clearly is not intimidating. She is liberating. She awakens a part of the man that craves direction, not control. A deep hunger to meet a woman in truth, not performance. Because the truth is, men are not turned off by female desire. They are turned off by confusion, by disconnection, by masks that hide what's really being asked for. When you say, I want you to kiss me like you mean it, or I love when you take control like this, or I need a moment of silence right now, you are not just stating needs, you are inviting him into intimacy. You are showing him that you trust him with your truth. That trust electrifies a man more than any fantasy ever could, because it means he doesn't have to guess anymore. He doesn't have to perform. He doesn't have to navigate a minefield of emotional subtext. He can simply respond to your presence, to your energy, to your clear invitation. And it's not just about words, it's about tone, body, energy. When a woman says what she wants and means it, her entire presence changes. She becomes undeniable, not because she's louder, but because she's anchored. A man feels that anchor. He feels the power of a woman who isn't just reacting to him, but creating the moment with him. And that creation, where two people meet, not in guessing games, but in honest connection, is where obsession is born. Because now she's not just someone to impress, she's someone to listen to. She becomes the compass of his actions, not the reward of them. That flips his internal system. That makes him lean in. That makes him wonder, what else does she want? What else can I give? But here's the catch. Most women don't speak this way because they're afraid. Afraid they'll come off too strong, too needy, too much. So they dilute. They ask instead of declare. They hint instead of express. They wait for him to lead, even when their soul is screaming to move. And when a man senses that fragmentation, he doesn't judge, but he feels the gap. The woman who doesn't speak what she wants creates distance, not intimacy. And over time, that distance erodes connection. Because even when he's there physically, emotionally, he's wandering, looking for the signal that tells him, you're safe here, you're seen here, you're wanted here. But when a woman boldly states her needs, her cravings, her edges, when she isn't ashamed of her fire, but invites him to feel it, she becomes magnetic. Because she isn't just offering herself as a partner, she's offering a map to her world. She's saying, here's how I love. Here's how I respond. Here's how I burn. That kind of woman isn't asking for love. She's embodying it. She's not performing femininity. She's radiating it. And that's exactly what makes her unforgettable. Because now she's not a mystery he's trying to solve. She's a force he's trying to rise up to meet. The woman who speaks her desires also teaches a man how to become more of himself. Because her boldness gives him permission to drop the act, to stop pretending he knows, to stop trying to be the knight in shining armor, when what she needs is something entirely different. And once that door is opened, once a man is met with honesty instead of guessing, he changes, he rises, he leans in, he starts speaking his desires too. And now the relationship isn't built on fantasy or performance. It's built on fire, on raw truth, on mutual evolution. This is what obsession is built on, not just physical beauty, not just chemistry, but a feeling of clarity. When a woman speaks with that kind of fearless expression, she carves herself into his memory, because she doesn't just arouse him, she awakens him. She gives him something no one else dared to, reality, raw, unfiltered, passionate reality. And men don't forget that. They replay it, because it reminds them of something ancient inside them. That desire is not something to chase blindly, but something to respond to with purpose. So the next time you feel the urge to soften your voice, to backtrack your truth, to wait for him to guess, don't. Stand in the fire of your own clarity. Say what you want, not for reaction, but for ownership. Let him see that you're not afraid of your own depth. Let him feel the power of a woman who doesn't beg to be seen, but who demands resonance with every word. That is not weakness. That is not neediness. That is the kind of boldness that haunts a man in the best way. That is the voice he hears long after the conversation ends. That is the sentence that replays in his mind while he's driving, working, sleeping. And that is the kind of woman he becomes obsessed with. Not because she played the game right, but because she didn't play it at all. When a woman touches a man like she owns the moment, she speaks a language deeper than words, older than logic, more primal than thought. It's not just skin on skin, it's presence made physical. It's not accidental. It's not hesitant. It's a deliberate, confident act that tells him, without needing to explain, you are safe here and you are mine for this moment. Most people touch reactively when invited, when guided, when the timing feels appropriate. But the woman who owns the moment moves first. She reaches out without apology. She places her hand where it belongs, not to provoke him, but to claim the space between them as real, alive, and hers to shape. And that changes everything. This kind of touch doesn't have to be bold in size. It can be as simple as her fingertips grazing the back of his neck while he's talking. It can be the palm of her hand resting on his chest while she listens. It can be her legs brushing against his under the table, not by accident, but by choice. The power isn't in the motion. The power is in the certainty behind it. It's the way her body communicates. I am not unsure. I'm not waiting for permission. I move because I want to. That kind of embodied boldness stuns a man because so much of what he experiences is guarded, calculated, uncertain. When you strip all that away and give him the raw confidence of intentional touch, you bypass his mind and go straight to his nervous system. He doesn't process it, he feels it. Touch is not just about physical connection, it's about emotional presence. A woman who owns her touch is fully in the moment. She's not wondering if he'll pull away. She's not overanalyzing his reaction. She's there, grounded, transmitting a kind of feminine energy that is so rare, it immediately pulls a man into deeper awareness. And here's where it gets powerful. A man doesn't just feel turned on by that kind of touch. He feels claimed, not possessed, not overpowered, claimed, as in seen, chosen, desired. And for a man who spends most of his life in a world that demands performance and control, that feeling is revolutionary. It's disarming. It makes him let go. This is why so many men remember not what a woman said, but how she touched them. That one moment when she placed her hand behind his neck while kissing him, just firmly enough to say, "Stay here with me." Or the way she pressed her fingers into his wrist as she whispered something personal, leaving a physical echo of her emotional presence. Or the bold slide of her fingers up his shirt when the conversation was still about something innocent, but her body declared otherwise. These are the moments that replay in a man's mind, not because they were sexual in function, but because they were saturated with purpose. Her body moved with intentionality. It wasn't asking, it was declaring, "This moment belongs to us." Too often, women hold back their touch, not because they don't want to express, but because they've been taught to wait. Wait for the man to make the first move. Wait for the right time. Wait until it's obvious he wants it. But bold women don't wait, they sense. They feel the energy in the space, the crackle in the silence, the way his breath shifts, and they act. Not recklessly, not carelessly, but with intuitive precision. They don't need a rule book. Their body is the message. And a man, whether he realizes it or not, is deeply affected by this. He may not be able to explain why he keeps thinking about her touch, but he will. Again and again. And this kind of boldness doesn't just show up in physical intimacy, it shows up in casual, everyday moments, the way she gently presses her thumb into his lower back while walking past him, the way she runs her hand across his arm as she laughs, the way she initiates physical connection, not as a response, but as a statement. These subtle yet deliberate acts of contact awaken his senses and make him feel something few men get to feel, desired without needing to earn it, that flips everything in his mind. Now, instead of pursuing her approval, he's addicted to her attention. He's hungry for her presence. Because her touch doesn't just feel good, it makes him feel real. It brings him out of his head and into the moment. And when a woman can do that, she becomes unforgettable. But more than that, her touch makes her unforgettable because it speaks volumes about who she is. She is not passive. She is not performative. She is not a mirror of his actions. She is a force of her own. She touches because she chooses, not because she's granted access. And that kind of power is intoxicating. It's not about dominance. It's about freedom. It's about a woman who is free enough in her own body, her own confidence, her own pleasure, that she doesn't wait to express it. She becomes the one who leads, not because she wants to control the man, but because she controls the energy. And energy, once set in motion by that kind of touch, becomes magnetic. He won't just want her body, he'll want her energy. He'll crave it. He'll miss it when it's gone. He'll replay it when she's not there. So if you want to make a man obsessed with you, don't underestimate the power of how you touch him, not just sexually, emotionally, spiritually. Be bold. Don't wait to be touched. Initiate. Don't wonder if it's the right time. Create the time. And most importantly, don't shrink your energy to make him comfortable. Own the moment. Own your body. Own your power. Because when your touch says, "I am not afraid of you. I'm not trying to impress you. I'm here because I want to be," he won't just remember it. He'll crave it again and again. And that is how obsession begins. not in the grand gestures, but in the small, deliberate, confident touches that say everything without saying a word. There is a profound, nearly mystical strength in a woman who asserts emotional control, without apology, without drama, and without the need to dominate. She doesn't flinch when emotions rise. She doesn't crumble when intensity builds. She becomes more composed, more self-possessed, more magnetic. While others might lose themselves in emotional chaos or chase validation in moments of uncertainty, she stands firm, not because she lacks emotion, but because she owns it. This is the woman who doesn't beg for reassurance when a man goes quiet. She doesn't spiral when he seems distant. She doesn't try to manipulate his attention or adjust her worth according to his moods. Instead, she anchors herself. And that emotional mastery doesn't just intrigue a man, it compels him. Most women have been conditioned to believe that emotional openness means complete emotional surrender to another person's reactions. They are told vulnerability is the key to connection, but they were never taught that disciplined vulnerability is the real power. The woman who can feel deeply and still choose her responses with clarity doesn't become cold. She becomes captivating because her energy isn't reactive, it's responsive. She's not afraid to feel. She's just not a slave to those feelings. And to a man, that kind of presence is like oxygen in a world of noise. It's grounding. It's sobering. It makes him respect her on a level that's far deeper than physical attraction. When a woman asserts emotional control, she doesn't need to explain herself endlessly. She doesn't overtalk, overgive, or overextend herself to prove her worth. She knows that emotional explosions might get temporary attention, but emotional mastery gets lasting obsession. Because while men may be drawn to beauty or chemistry, they become bound to a woman who makes them feel emotionally safe. And emotional safety doesn't mean she lets him walk all over her. It means she refuses to abandon herself for him. She can sit in tension. She can hold her ground. She can say, I love you, but I will not lose myself trying to win you. This woman doesn't chase clarity when a man grows distant. She allows space to speak. She doesn't use silence as a weapon, but she isn't afraid of it either. And that balance, that calm command over her own inner world, makes a man feel both challenged and drawn in. She's not chasing his attention. She's drawing it to her with gravitational force. And that's the secret. Emotional control is the highest form of seduction. It tells a man, you don't define my peace. You're invited into it. That difference is everything. It separates the women who leave impressions from the ones who leave imprints. She can express frustration without rage. She can show sadness without collapsing. She can disagree without needing to win. Because she knows power isn't in how loud she is, it's in how centered she stays. And when a man feels that emotional weight, when he sees that he can't pull her out of alignment even if he tried, he begins to rise to meet her. He adjusts his energy. He brings more respect, more consistency, more intentionality. Why? Because she's not emotionally dependent on him. She's emotionally sovereign. And that, to a masculine psyche, is both intimidating and irresistible. Even in moments of conflict, she doesn't fight to be right. She fights to stay true to herself. She can walk away without creating chaos. She can draw boundaries without threats. Her emotional power isn't used to control others. It's used to protect her alignment. That maturity rewires a man's perception of her. She becomes not just a woman he wants to touch, but a woman whose presence brings order to his world. And the truth is, men are starving for that. Not for perfection, not for a woman who never feels anything, but for a woman who feels everything and still chooses how she shows up. That is real power. That is the kind of emotional presence that makes a man feel both captivated and calm around her. She also doesn't apologize for needing emotional standards. She doesn't lower the bar to keep someone around. If a man brings drama, inconsistency, or disrespect, she doesn't try to fix him. She doesn't try to heal him with her love. She simply exits the emotional contract, not with bitterness, with finality. And that decision delivered without chaos, hits harder than any screaming match ever could. It says, I love myself more than this dynamic. And when a man sees that, he realizes she's not someone who tolerates love, she chooses it. She curates her emotional environment like a queen chooses who gets access to her throne room. That exclusivity doesn't make her arrogant, it makes her sacred. Men don't become obsessed with women who fall apart every time something gets hard. They become obsessed with the ones who remain composed, not cold, but regulated. Women who make their emotions available, not weaponized. Women who can hold passion and patience in the same breath. Women who know how to say, I'm feeling a lot right now, but I'm still in control of me. That kind of emotional awareness isn't just rare, it's royal. And when a man feels that kind of feminine power, it humbles him, it awakens him, it makes him want to earn his place in her life, not just get lucky enough to be in it. So when you feel triggered, when you feel overlooked, when you feel overwhelmed, remember this: the boldest move is not yelling, pleading, or proving. It's pausing, breathing, and responding from your highest self, not your wounded self. That's where obsession is born. Because a woman who owns her emotional world cannot be manipulated, controlled, or discarded. She becomes untouchable, not because she hides, but because she masters. And that kind of mastery will haunt a man long after she's gone. It will echo in every future connection he has, because once he's tasted the presence of a woman who rules her emotions without apology, every other connection feels shallow by comparison. There's something hauntingly powerful about a woman who doesn't finish every sentence, who doesn't explain every emotion, who doesn't lay everything out for the man to digest like a formula. Instead, she chooses to leave something unfinished, a glance that lingers too long, a sentence that trails off at just the right moment, a kiss that ends while he's still leaning in. This is not indecision. This is not insecurity. This is precision. A bold psychological move that digs into a man's subconscious and refuses to let go, because the mind is addicted to incompletion. And the woman who understands this, not to manipulate but to master emotional impact, becomes unforgettable. When you leave a man with an unfinished thought, you activate one of the deepest principles of psychological tension, the Zeigarnik effect. People remember incomplete experiences far more intensely than completed ones. When you tie everything up, when you say everything that could be said, when you finish every emotional arc, you give them closure. And closure, while comforting, doesn't breed obsession. But when you leave a sentence open, when you allow the space between your words to do the talking, when you let silence carry the weight of meaning, you create a mental loop that plays in his head over and over again. He replays your tone, he replays your look, he replays that pause, and in doing so, he binds himself to the moment, not because you forced him to, but because you didn't. You see, most people talk too much because they're afraid of not being understood. But the bold woman understands that mystery is more seductive than clarity. She doesn't need to convince him. She doesn't need to hand him a script of how to love her. She trusts that the right man will feel her, even in her pauses, especially in her pauses. She speaks with confidence and stops before it's too much. She touches and then withdraws before it becomes routine. She gives him a taste of her mind, her soul, her energy, and then she pulls back. Not to punish, not to confuse, but to let the impression sink in, to let him feel what life is like without constant access to her. And that's the key, access. The woman who leaves him with an unfinished thought is not withholding affection. She's calibrating access. She understands that in a world full of oversharing, of endless stimulation, of people vomiting their thoughts and emotions without filter, a single moment of intentional mystery hits harder than an hour of emotional dumping. She becomes art instead of explanation. She becomes the novel with one page missing, the dream that fades just before the climax, the melody that stops on the second to last note. And men don't forget those things. They ache to complete them. When you pull back mid-sentence, when you look at him with that half smile like you know something he doesn't, when you stop your message at the peak of emotional buildup, you don't lose power. You gain it because you trust the moment to speak for itself. You trust him to reach for more. And in that reaching, he becomes more invested, more engaged, more obsessed. Why? Because men are wired to resolve tension. They chase not just what they can have, but what they almost had, what was almost said, what was almost touched. That almost becomes a thread in their psyche that they keep pulling long after you're gone. And what makes this even more profound is that the woman who does this isn't doing it to control. She's doing it because she's anchored. She doesn't feel the need to prove her depth by pouring everything out. She is depth. She lets the man experience her in layers. She doesn't rush to be fully known. She lets curiosity build, not by being fake or aloof, but by being intentional. She says just enough to spark his interest. She leans in, not with all her weight, but with just enough presence to invite him forward. And then she steps back, not to disappear, but to let him feel the gravity of what just happened. This applies in conversation, in text, in touch, in sex, in silence, everywhere. When she's speaking and she stops mid-sentence and says, "You know what I mean," and looks him in the eye, she doesn't have to explain further. That moment becomes heavier than a monologue. When she texts something like, "Last night, wow," and leaves it at that, she doesn't need to describe it. He's already imagining a dozen meanings. When she leans in to kiss him and then pulls away an inch before contact, he's not just left wanting, he's left consumed. And the irony? It takes far more confidence to leave something incomplete than it does to finish everything. Incompletion requires trust. Trust in yourself. Trust in your impact. Trust in his imagination. It says, "I don't need to say more. You're already feeling it." And when you carry that kind of confidence, you stop being a woman he's trying to figure out. You become a woman he can't stop thinking about because you didn't give him a map. You gave him a mystery. A moment that ended too soon, a thought that never found its conclusion. And now his brain, his heart, his body is trying to find it for you. This is not a strategy, this is art. It's knowing that a powerful pause can be louder than a desperate plea, that restraint can be more erotic than excess, that a half-told story can echo louder than a full confession. So, when you speak, speak with depth, but stop before it becomes noise. When you touch, touch with presence, then let the absence linger. When you connect, do it completely in the moment, and then leave a door slightly open instead of slamming it shut with finality. That is the bold move. That is how obsession is planted. Not with loud declarations, but with silent impressions. Because in the end, men don't lose sleep over women who explained everything. They lose sleep over the one who left a sentence hanging, a moment suspended, an energy unresolved, the one who let him feel everything without needing to name it. That's the woman who lives in his dreams. That's the woman who becomes a legend in his mind. Not because she was louder, but because she left something unfinished.